And once you get your carburetors back in, make sure you got them all the way forward. Make sure the spring, see that little spring right there, is rolled into the forward position, and your boots are all the way up over the carburetor. If your boots and springs do not look like that, you either need to buy new ones because you were too cheap to do it and they're not going to fit right, or you didn't do something right. It's the only two options. They need to look like this when you're done. They need to look like that, guys. Pushed all the way forward, all the way up into place with the spring in the forward position. And your manifolds. Now, note about these clamps. I like to rotate them out towards the side of the bike a little bit, away from the center of the carburetor, because you don't want the throttle parts, the throttle plate parts that rotate in there, to touch those hose clamp screws. I've seen guys get seriously injured through the years putting it together. It idles right, everything's good, they never test full throttle or release, and then they ride the bike and it holds the throttle wide open right there in their front driveway in front of their garage, and bam, injuries and property damage occurs. So make sure that those clamps are away from the throttle and that you can stroke it fully on and fully off. I'll show you how to test that later. On this, you know, where these parts rotate in there, see those parts rotating? You don't want these screws anywhere near that, so just be careful about that. And then once you get your manifolds all good, like mine are all lined up ready to go, I'm going to stop talking and hold the camera with my mouth while I do this next step. But then you want to push the air box forward. You want to apply a forward pressure on it to hold that rubber up on the back of the carburetor and assist it in a good seal. So I'm going to show you how I push the air box forward and bolt it down. Okay, you can see, look at that, they put heated grips on this thing, and they got exposed wires on a hot side next to a fuse. Look at that. So they got these wires hanging down. I'll probably just cut these heated grips off. I don't really want them, but you know, they were there. Somebody wanted them, so they put them on. But yeah, guys, if you're gonna run hot wires through your bike and fuse it up and all that and do a good job, least you could do is cover your wiring. Alright, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to pry the box forward and then tighten those bolts down to apply a forward pressure. Okay, see how I pried that forward, and that's applying positive pressure in a forward direction to hold those manifolds up on the carburetors. See how the back grooves are empty now? Because I rotated the springs forward. I don't know if you can pick that up or not, but if those springs are not forward and those boots aren't perfectly encirculating the back of those carburetors and sealing, your bike will never run right. No matter what you do with your jets, no matter what you do with your carb clean, if it's leaking air, it's not going to run right. Got the new valve in. Yeah, the old screens didn't look too bad. They really didn't look too bad. There's a little bit of muck where the old paint stuck to the seals, but I could probably clean that valve up and make it work. If I feel like it later, I'll do it as a spare. Probably won't bother, to be honest with you. Got my choke cable hooked up. That's working correctly. Got the gas tank back on. I flushed all the old fuel out. Now look, I said this before, and I say it to my guys at work all the time. Don't do a carb clean and then run the old gas back through the carburetor, filter or no filter. Don't do it. If I need to explain to you why, put all your tools down and stop. Because you're gonna just, yeah, it's a little bit mean, but I shouldn't need to explain to you why putting dirty gas back in clean carburetors is a bad idea. Okay? So when you clean your carburetors, you need clean gasoline. So I got my gas tank back on, got all my vacuum lines hooked up. I didn't have much gas in my little lawnmower can there. I got some clean gas out of that lawnmower can, clean high test, about a half a gallon. So I put this in the reserve position on the valve, and I got the battery hooked up. We're just going to turn the engine over, apply a little bit of vacuum, and see if we can get some fuel to run out of that hose. I'm going to prop it out with my foot to keep it from running all over the bike. Just see if we get some gas out of there. Oh, got to be in neutral. At least to do it with one hand without holding the clutch in anyway. Alright, let's try this again. So, fuel hose out and away from the bike. Going to apply some vacuum, see if we get anything. It won't start because there's no gas in the carbs. I'm just looking to see if we get fuel flow. Yep, there it is. See that? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hook that up and fill the bowls up. And then it'll take a few cranks it won't run when we first try it. It's an old wives' tale where you can start an engine on the first push of the button if it's carbureted, because first you got to fill the bowls. So I'll hold the button down 8-10 seconds. It'll take gasoline and then start and run on the choke. If that's what will happen when we go to do that. Now, if you hold your starter button down for 8 or 10 seconds and it doesn't start, don't burn your starter up. Starters are not designed, I repeat, starter windings take a heck of a beating every time you start your bike. They're not designed to get hot and stay hot. They're designed to start your bike and cool right back off. Start your bike, cool right back off. Start your bike, cool right back off. If you hold the starter button down for 20 minutes, you will burn your starter up, not to mention what you're doing to your battery. So don't do that. If it doesn't start in 8 or 10 seconds after that amount of time where it should get fuel into the bowls, then something's wrong. You're not getting fuel, or it's not running right. It's not going to work. I've used starter fluid to prime bikes with dry carburetors if they have a large fuel system. This little bike here doesn't, because this little bike's about as simple as it gets. Gasoline comes out where you saw it and goes right in the bowl, and that's that. If you got some big giant, you know, V45 Magna as an example I like to use, it has a lot of plumbing and a lot of volume, it might take 30-45 seconds to fill those. So what I've done with those is I've put everything together, hooked them all up, and I've started them on starting fluid to let the engine run a few seconds before, you know, I might have to do that 2 or 3 times before enough fuel goes into bowls. And then usually it'll pick up on 1 or 2 cylinders, run horribly for 30 seconds, and you'll say, oh, I didn't do a good job, it runs horrible. But then 30 seconds later, when that 4th carburetor gets its fuel, thing purrs like a kitten, smooths right out. So if you have big volume displacement fuel systems, not so much engine displacement, that doesn't matter, but the displacement of how much fuel you have to flow through your pumps, your lines. This thing doesn't even have a pump. It's gravity fed. So if you're feeding multiple pumps, multiple lines, and getting it through multiple filters before it winds up into the carburetors, yeah, it can take 40 or so seconds. I've primed them with starting fluid. But this little thing, that gasoline will go right in those bowls, and in about 8 or 10 seconds, this thing will be firing right up. So let's hook it up and get that ready to try. Okay. I've already got the vacuum hooked up, obviously, because it worked. So let's see if we can stretch this hose over this big nipple here. That's a big nipple for a small hose. I don't know. Yep, there we go. Okay. It's gonna work out. Don't force these little plastic things, especially when these bikes get a little older. You know, you can break them. I've broke them before. So be careful about that. See how that line's wanting to kink? See that? It's wanting to kink. So I might have to cut some of this out here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut this line a little short here so it doesn't force that kink to occur. And I'll redo that line a little bit, because if it's kinking at all there, of course that's going to cut your fuel supply. So let me fix that, and then before we start it, fire it up, I'll turn the camera back on.